If you saw my video last time, then you'll know that I have quite the plans for knitting, sewing, crocheting for an 1840s ball that I'm super excited to go to. This will be my first event of this kind. I'm excited, I'm nervous. I'm very nervous, to be honest. I'm a little socially anxious, so this is gonna be quite the thing for me to go to, but I'm also very excited. So today we're going to be making my ball gown. Now you all know that my inspiration to make this ball gown is Ada Lovelace, and in particular a portrait of her in the 1840s on the way to a ball herself. I spent a lot of time to find the right silk for my dress. Does it pass inspection? Yes? And that is this lovely shot silk. I believe what I learned is that shot silk is two different colors. So the warp is one color and the weft is a different one. So we have purple and white. But before we cut into my precious real silk taffeta, oh my God, it's my first time using silk taffeta too. So I am nervous. I'm starting to get sweaty palms. I need to do so many mock-ups to make sure that this is going to fit me well and fit me in the way that I want it to. All right, let's get right to making some mock-ups. I started right away in sewing up a few mock-ups of my bodice for my evening gown from the pattern that I had purchased, and while I liked the general cut of it, I was having a lot of issues fitting it on myself. I am not a very experienced sewist, and I really am not familiar with this time period. I reached out to my good friend Claude from Retro Claude to see if she could help me, and she was gracious enough to hop on a video chat with me.
Hello, I'm Claude, and I'm a theatre costume maker and a YouTuber. And I'm also a big vintage knitting enthusiast, as you can see. So I have a YouTube channel, Retro Claude, where I talk about all my knitting projects and my sewing projects, including my current project, 1840s for the ball. Is why we're here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. I'm sure that we're both kind of in the throes of sewing and making things for the ball together.
When I tell my IRL friends, if you like, about it, I'm always a bit nervous about their reaction, because they're like, you're going to do what? And you're going to dress up in what? I've had loads of really positive reactions when I tell people as well, and they're all really jealous. So that's sort of, now I've got all these people who are really excited around me as well. So I'm really looking forward to it.
What I was hoping to get your help on, I tried my best to pin myself into it, but I will say I'm pretty sweaty, and I think I have a few prick marks in the back of my back, because I was thinking about it, I should have made at least a lacing closure.
Oh, right, yeah.
To try to, because trying to pin myself into this is how.
Yeah. I quite often when I do a mock-up, even if there isn't a centre front seam, I cut the mock-up with a centre front seam, and then I can just safety pin it where I can see it and sort of think, this will be on the fold. Okay. Or I switch it to the side seam as well, because that's a touch easier.
This seems a little flat still,
it's so hard to tell from a fashion plate, I always think, because I have narrow shoulders, but they're quite square, they don't slope at all, whereas the fashion plates, they're so rounded, and I'm thinking, do I want it to hit down here on my arm, or do I actually want it on the roll of the shoulder? It seems to not cut, but sort of hit really nicely along the shoulder where it is now with the seam allowance.
Right.
I think it's too high in the middle, if that makes sense. So I think it needs to scoop out a touch more. I was just going to say, however, what happens when you do that then is this excess will become more of an issue. So you might have to pinch out a little bit is there a seam at the centre front? It looks like.
Yeah, there's one
so
right
you
here.
Might have to bring that in just a little bit as you follow it out.
One of the other things I'm noticing too when I'm wearing this is I feel like it's a lot this is my natural posture, but I have that forward head slump posture. So I feel like, because I should be standing like this, right? And this is how it looks nice. But the reality is that I just don't have the muscle strength for that. And so most likely over the course of a few hours while I'm wearing this, I'm going to end up
I don't know, because I have so many back issues. I've been wearing my corset for about 3 hours this afternoon, sort of to warm up both me and the corset, because I know people are like, oh, it's not that bad. I hate it. I find it so uncomfortable. But I'm vain, so I tend to fit it for a nice photograph so that it looks nice and historically accurate. And then if it wrinkles when I do this to give my shoulders a break, then I'm not so worried.
Yeah.
I would go for so it doesn't fall down. Which is probably what I would go for.
That's actually a good point.
Because, if if you fit it beautifully like this and then you slouch and it collapses off your shoulders, then you're going to spend the entire evening fiddling with it and you're not going to enjoy yourself, and you're going to have gloves on and a fan and a drink in one hand and canapes in the other or whatever.
I have a pattern question, and like I said, I haven't attached the sleeves yet, and that's my next worry, but I wonder if that'll be kind of taken in with the seam allowance for fitting the sleeve, but I'm not 100% sure.
So low and off the shoulder, and so the sleeve patterns that I've seen are basically a rectangle with like a tiny curve at the top. I think I would actually, looking at yours there though, I think you might want to raise your armhole a little bit. It looks a little bit low. And actually, the higher it is, while it's uncomfortable to have that fabric in there, you'll be able to move your arm more.
Oh, okay.
So, because particularly if there's 5/8 seam allowance on there, and I can see from the crease of your t-shirt, so the sleeve will be down there, so your arm will be completely pinned down.
I'm just gonna...
Because, and then you'll be trying to dance like that.
So it's editing me here. I just wanted to say thank you again so much to Claude for spending over 2 hours chatting with me about the fitting of my ball gown. Unfortunately, I ran out of space at this point to capture the rest of our conversation, so that's why we got cut off so abruptly here. I also had a really hard time editing it all down because there was so much fun and good information there, but I did leave in a few nuggets that I thought were really helpful, so I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. But anyways, again, thank you so much, Claude. That was incredibly helpful. And I'm sorry we got cut off. Oh my gosh, what a constructive conversation with Claude. Okay, so I've already done the first thing. Sewed the seam in the back on the center back line, and I pinned along the sewing line on the front. And I feel like the front fits me nicely. I do definitely still have bagginess through here. So the thing is with this is you have a few options for how to close up the back of the dress. I want to do eyelets, and they have the fold lines for the eyelets and the hooks and eyes, but they also have the line for the center back seam and where the center back seam should be on both pieces. So I sewed along that line, and when you look at this, I mean, I can pinch out, I think, nearly a full inch all the way down. I'll just go down a size in all of the pieces and sew another mock-up with that, but then I'm also going to take into account the discussion that I had with Claude. So if my shoulder seam could sit here when it's done, amazing. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of seam allowance here. And then here's one of the front pieces that I've been sewing on, and I cut and sewed to this line, but you can see here that there's more necklines kind of marked out, but I think I might go the full like dramatic dip. Okay, it's quite a bit later now, as you can probably tell from how dark it is, but I have finished with the second version of this mock-up. I have to say I'm so happy with it. So I forgot to add the extra seam allowance up here, and I forgot to add the extra seam allowance down here at the waist like Claude and I had discussed, but I do think that I might have to do a third mock-up. I have to get used to it because my arms are constrained. If I were to fully raise my arms, I do think that I'd probably rip the fabric, which would also, I'd feel really strong if I could like Hulk out of my clothes. And I think overall that looks really good. Main reason I think why I wanted that mock-up is to test it out with that extra seam allowance and then maybe like tuck it under and mark it out. Add in the sleeves, because I haven't added in the sleeves yet because I realized that I forgot to put the extra seam allowance, and I haven't tried this on yet with my chemise. I'll get changed. I'll show you how it looks. And I know you can't really see it, but that's kind of the point, I guess. But if I show you, I didn't make it myself, I ordered it, and it is a little too small for me. When I ordered it, I gave some sort of measurements, hoping it would be close. That's kind of the nice thing is I have a good starting point, and I'm just gonna make myself like a little button tab to span the distance. The other nice thing that you might notice is now that I'm wearing my chemise, the chemise has this gathering in the front, which puts in a lot of extra fabric, which adds a bit more volume. So I think for my third mock-up fitting, I'm gonna put my petticoats on just to see what the line of this bodice looks like over the petticoats. Not so bad, right? It feels like, oh, every time I get closer, but then it's almost like the list grows of the things that I still have to do. So, all right, I'll see you in the morning. Another day, another mock-up, to be honest. Look at this fabric. Isn't it so cute? I kind of just want to keep this mock-up as one of the dresses that I can wear. It's so, so cute. So you might notice that I don't have the center front seam pinned, and that's because I actually made it laced in the back. However, As you can probably see, I really had to scrunch it together for this to fit. This is much thinner fabric than my previous mock-ups were made of, but I'm having the same thing where I'm getting like a lot of excess fabric in the backs. I still like lacing. I want a smooth look in the back, and looking at the instructions you would see the lacing, and I'd rather not have that, so I might switch it instead to eyelets. But I basically want to see if I can take out enough of the excess in the back without encroaching on the seam that's in the back there. I've included the alterations, so this is with the extra seam allowance, so it's currently sliding down a little bit because of that, but I think once that's folded over, it'll fit tighter. And the other thing is, I realized looking at my inspiration photo that she has a puffed sleeve and not a tight-fitting sleeve, which is kind of nice because the arm side I think fits me much better now. It's not quite as deep, but the puff sleeve does give me a little bit more room in the sleeve head. Today, honestly, I just put on my corset and my chemise from the moment I woke up because I knew I'd be doing mock-ups all day. So I was like, you know what, rather than trying to get into and out of and into and out of, I'm just gonna wear it today. And it's good practice too. It helps me with my posture. I honestly didn't think I'd ever feel so happy about anything that I made, but this is amazing, and this is just a mock-up. Oh, I mean, the fabric is so cute, isn't it? So I think the smaller size in the back does make sense. What I might have to do though is, Claude had mentioned that curve seams at the time were common in the front, at least in the bust, and it turns out as I was looking at the pattern pieces, it is a bit curved. But what I'm noticing is that my sleeves are sagging, and I don't like, if I pinch in here, I get pinching in the underarm, but if I pinch in at my upper back, that feels much better, and my sleeves don't slide down, because right now they're sliding down, and I really don't want to be losing the dress off of my shoulders. It's at this point in my sewing journey that I am starting to get an incredibly sore neck from looking down all the time, and so I found these wonderful 90-degree glasses. It allows me to look straight ahead while looking also directly down at my hands. I learned that I get motion sick if I move my head around too much, so as long as I don't move my head back and forth, I can see perfectly fine and save myself some neck and back pain. Hello. It's the same day as the last mock-up making that you saw instead, but it's like 3:20 in the morning, and I haven't been able to sleep because it suddenly dawned on me how little time I have left. So the ball is at the end of April, and we're in the middle of March right now when I'm filming this. Technically the ball is at the end of April. We are leaving on the trip 2.5 weeks before then, and I'm starting to realize how little time that is really. Rather than continuing to freak myself out about it, I have my tea kettle on the stove, so I'm gonna make myself a nice hot tea. I'm gonna grab my notebook. This is how I've been planning out my days, by the way. I have like a list of things that I'd like to get done, but I think what I need to do is just reevaluate how many true days do I have to get things done, and then I really need to prioritize. I'm going to a ball, so I need a ball gown, and the person who's joining me needs a ball gown, so we need to get those done. It's now 4 in the morning. I have 3 weeks to get everything done, and I think I can definitely get like the base version of all of this done. I just have so many other ideas that I really want to do. Did it help in some ways? Yes, but then also no, because it's made me be like, oh, but if I just had this one thing done, then tomorrow I can be so much more productive. I think what might be better for me is to just tell myself that it'll still be there in the morning, and I will probably do a better job in the morning when I am not so foggy brained and I can think more clearly. Do I need sleep? Hey, it is the next day and I am feeling much better. I did sleep in quite a bit today, but that does mean that I feel super rested. Yes, I did decide to do my hair today, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go back to the mock-up making. I do have that list of things that I want to get done, so let's work on those. Well, we've got another day and another ball gown fitting, mainly of the bodice. Also, can I just say I'm super proud of myself. Look at how I'm holding up my hair. What do you think? Should I wear it more regularly? Overall, I'm pretty pleased with the front. This is going to turn into the lining of my bodice, and I have re-sewn the back seam. I do think that overall this fits much better. We do still have the gapping here. Again, I'll put in padding. But I think the next thing that you'll see of me is cutting out from the fashion fabric, aka my silk. First time I've ever sewn with silk. And yes, I did cut into my thumb. I'm using a rotary cutter and those things are sharp. We are currently on the floor of my kitchen and I just wanted to double check that I could cut out my day bodice and my evening bodice and still have enough for the skirt, and it looks like I will have like just about the right amount, which I'm really happy about. Cutting out precious fabric is always so stressful to me. I ate my dinner, I drank my water. I just want to be in like a fully good feeling state before I touch this, and I think we can cut it out. We're here. We're cutting out my bodice. Good morning. It's the next day. I worked quite late into the night last night. I showed you flatlining my fashion fabric with the cotton drill, but then I actually also sewed the darts on the front bodice. I think that the bodice so far is looking spectacular. Holy cow, this fabric is gorgeous. The next step today for me to do is to put in the boning. So I'm using spiral steel boning. I'm just gonna follow the directions and I am gonna bone it into the curves. This was also a big discussion that I had with Claude. So I think what Claude was saying is that historically they would have pressed the darts open and then boned into that, like on top of that. But instead I'm going to keep them pressed away from the front, create the boning channel in there. Sorry, we're having another windstorm today, so you might hear some extra noises in the background. Let's do some boning. Can you believe it? The bodice is constructed and all that's left now is to do the piping and the sleeves. But really, I'm so happy that the overall structure of the bodice is done. Yes, I did cave and I bought myself one of those dress forms. It's not a true dress form, it's a display form, so it's not my size. I might pad it out in the future to become my size, but I mainly wanted it because now that I'm starting to work in the silk, before all my undergarments and stuff were just strewn around the floor, I just really wanted a place to put the dress that wasn't on the floor. At this point in the process too, right before you add the piping, you kind of want to make a decision on how this front piece will look. How pointed do you want it? I do want it kind of narrower and pointy, but maybe not quite as long, so maybe a little bit higher. But I think that it would be nice to have the skirt done first and then try on this version of the bodice and then kind of mark out, maybe with some chalk that I have, what I want that line to look like. I have cut out all of the pieces for my day bodice, which meant that I could then cut out the pieces for the skirt. So as you can see, I have a lot of fullness to my skirts. This is just pinned onto my mannequin, so it's not gathered or pleated into a fold or anything. And, oh, I look terrifying. Sorry. I'm not trying to look scary. I feel like the universe is thinking like, oh, you want to work on a project in the Victorian era? Why don't I let you work in those conditions a little early and flip off your electricity? You might have heard me say earlier that there was another windstorm going on today, so of course the power's gone out. Good thing I have a treadle power sewing machine, so I'll still be able to work on that. Just some fun extra obstacles and challenges along the way. You know what just hit me all of a sudden? The last time the power was out, we ran out of hot water and I really had to wash my hair because I did a 60s look and so my hair was like teased and hairsprayed. So I had to go take a shower and it was so cold. But since the power just went out, we might still have hot water. So I'm gonna drop everything and see if I can take the fastest, still hopefully hot water or at least like warm water shower because I don't know how long the power is gonna be out for. Sadly, the shower was not meant to be. The hot water was already out, unfortunately. I don't think I was the only one with that idea after what happened a few days ago with that power outage. The sun is getting lower and lower, so it's getting harder and harder to see, but I do have candles and some lanterns and torches and flashlights and things that I can set up to continue working because I still have the energy. The main issue that I'm facing now is I have a clock, so I can keep time even if my cell phone dies. My sewing machine is treadle powered, so I have no issue sewing, but I do need to press my seams. And a few months back, I found an antique iron that was cast iron that you can just put in the fire and then iron with, and I'm really regretting not getting that now. I do have an idea though. I have a cast iron pan, and then I can potentially iron with my pan. Maybe in the running for the strangest thing used to iron. You tell me. Let's see if it works. Scares the crap out of me. As you can probably see, this is working surprisingly well on the cotton lining. The first few passes of my iron, or my cast iron pan, I guess, did get a little dirt off onto the white cotton, but since it's a lining, I didn't mind too much. And since I thought it was probably now pretty clean, I decided to go ahead and iron my silk as well. Do you notice something? The power's back on, which makes me super excited. I managed to get my skirt and lining done and sewed, and now I'm going to try to do the pleating. So I think I've completed all the knife pleats. I really like how this looks. Doesn't it look fantastic? Oh, and the sound. The sound of this taffeta is amazing. Okay, ouch. Gotta stop doing that. My antique Wilcox & Gibbs sewing machine has so many wonderful little attachments that I love to use, and I can even change out the sewing foot, although it is a little bit more involved. I do need a special wrench to change it, but a nice narrow foot will be good to work on the piping now for my bodice. Good morning! We're back in my kitchen with where I've been storing my dress overnight when I'm not working on it. I've been pulling some long days. What do I need to do today? We need to finish the Bertha. I took it off and reapplied it last night, and last night when I put it on the dress form, I was actually considering doing that again, taking off everything I've done and restarting, because what you might notice is it's looking very curved rather than pointy. And the original examples that I was following from the 1840s had a pointed waist and a pointed front. So I'm not going to take it off, so I'm going to finish the Bertha, the applied Bertha this morning. After that, we're doing the sleeves, the puff sleeves, which I think is going to add a huge, another bit of like character to this dress. To the back, we need to add closures, and then I'm considering potentially adding bones at the side. The front is done and sewn to the waistband, but the back is still completely unpleated. I am hoping to finish all of that today. That might be high hopes, but sometimes you gotta aim high. I remember it was like in my first grade classroom, it was like shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. So I have finished the applied Bertha. I've sewn over all of the rough edges on the shoulders here by the armholes, and I've covered the center one with another bias strip. I've tried my best at kind of pressing these, but there's a few places where I think I really have to find my tailor's hand to kind of press some of that a little bit straighter. And it is time to move on to the sleeves. Nutella and I are both currently hydrating. You might hear her in the back. But yes, sleeves next. With the front of my skirt pleated and my sleeves set into the bodice, I'm starting to really enjoy the look of this dress coming together. I did also add some black lace to the bottom of the sleeves to imitate the portrait a little bit more. But yeah, when I turn around towards the back, we're still a little unfinished. I still have to do the cartridge pleating back there. It's also interesting to try to fit a back closure on yourself. I have to use this video footage to understand how best to alter it. I did end up going for a hook and eye closure in the back just to make it a little bit less of an issue for me. It was a little easier to sew, to put it shortly. Do you see what time it is? It is not 4 in the afternoon. It's 4:15 in the morning. I'm finding it really hard to sleep if I don't come to a good conclusion with my sewing. I was about to go to sleep when I put the bodice on again. And after my initial fitting, I had made an adjustment because I could see from the footage that the waist fit, like up until like the low waist, it fit well. And then I had some difficulty closing the gap at the top. So I needed to expand it at the top. And I spent all this time finishing it, only to realize that I didn't expand it. I actually narrowed it. Like, I can't explain it to you logically right now, but because it's way too early, late. However, I am wearing a finished bodice right now. Like, everything on it is done. The padding, all of the boning, the extra side boning, the lace. I'm not going to show it to you because I feel like it'll give away a little too much before the final reveal. I'd like to finish the skirt tomorrow. That would be nice. I had also hoped to finish the day bodice by tomorrow, but I'll have to see if I'm in the mood to do more sewing because honestly, my fingertips are numb from just the calluses and the sewing through such firm materials for so long. So I don't know that I'm 100% up to that. Tomorrow I might take a break and do some knitting instead. We'll have to see. I'm gonna go straight to bed. I'm going to say goodnight, and I will see you tomorrow for sewing on my skirt. I'm just kidding. I was way too stressed about making sure that I got everything done on time that I did not take any breaks the next day, and I went straight to sewing on the cartridge pleats on my skirt so that I could have a fully finished ball gown to wear. Also decided to add some ruffles to my petticoat just to give it a little bit of extra volume. Usually you would wear many layers of petticoats at the time, but I just don't have the room to pack that many, so I thought maybe adding a few more ruffles and tiers to my petticoat would give me the volume that I was looking for. And once again, I love all the attachments of my Wilcox & Gibbs machine. I have a ruffling foot or a gathering foot that works beautifully to create these little ruffles, and then my hemmer is just so easy, so I can sew yards and yards of hem without any issues at all. And at this point, I think I'm going to have to leave it because I then had to start working on the next projects in order to get them done. Already saw a little bit of a sneak preview of me wearing this gown when I was introducing the Ada Lovelace project. I'm sorry, I'm gonna just show you that again for now to give you that sneak preview. You're going to have to wait and hold on for me to finish the whole ensemble, and then you can see some finished footage of me wearing it when I go to the UK. So stick around. Please subscribe if you're interested in seeing the full ensemble come together. We've got a bunch more sewing, knitting, crocheting, all of that together coming up for this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye!